Welcome to the Tough Decisions Daily Show with your hosts, Dan and Dennae Hanford. As entrepreneurs and real estate investors, we are faced with tough decisions on a daily basis. These tough decisions can either make us or break us. On this show, you will hear from highly successful people sharing their stories behind tough decisions that they have had to make along their journey of success. In every episode, you will be able to learn from the thought processes behind the tough decisions that were made. Some of these decisions will have amazing outcomes, and some not so much. So without further ado, your hosts, Dan and Dennae.
We are very excited to have you guys listening, and we have myself, Dan, and my wife, Dennae.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Excited about a new adventure. This first episode we're calling episode 0, just to kind of introduce ourselves and a little bit about our background and what we want to do with this podcast.
This podcast is going to be very exciting. We've been thinking about the best format, and I think that this format is going to be very unique, is going to be very exciting. It's going to be very earth-shattering, if you will, in the fact that there's a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of real estate investors that, on a daily basis make tough decisions. And these tough decisions aren't necessarily decisions that are, negative. They might just be decisions that need to be made, but, they can either be good decisions or bad decisions. And the outcomes of those can either be good or bad at the same time. And I believe that all of these entrepreneurs that are successful, that have gotten to the level of success that they have, they've gotten there because of these tough decisions that they've made. And many times the tough decisions that we make, the ones that we make the wrong way, I guess, and we start to have failure, those are really when we learn the most. And I think that as entrepreneurs and listeners and real estate investors, as they're listening to the show, they pick up a lot of these different lessons that can be learned, and it's going to be, having the ability to be able to learn from other people's mistakes and as well as other people's successes and the decisions that they make.
Right. And I think it'll also be really neat to hear other entrepreneurs and leaders, how they have approached their decisions. Because, sometimes we can put ourselves in a situation where it's not that we're the only ones, but sometimes we might feel a little bit lonely in the tough decisions that we have to make. And that can be a discouraging thing, especially if we don't have anyone close or in the same geographical area that's facing some of the same decisions that we have. I know we've both been in that position before, but it's neat to hear other people, other entrepreneurs, other successful people talk about the tough decisions that they've made and how they've come through, whether it was a good decision or what they would even call a bad decision, but they made it through on the other side. And it can be encouraging and neat to hear other people's stories and give us some good information on how we can make our own decisions.
And if you're listening and you know of somebody yourself that is a very highly successful entrepreneur or real estate investor, and you would like to nominate them to be on the show, please do that. You can go visit our Facebook page and send us a message and let us know we're actively seeking people to interview. We've already got a long list of people that we're going to be interviewing. That's going to be starting and launching on June 1st. And so we're excited to be able to share those stories with you and those lessons that can be learned. We have a long lineup of people joining us, and I know you guys are going to be excited about that.
Yeah, and I'm actually really excited about the people that we're going to get to talk to, but also about the different things that we're going to do, some on the weekends and other topics that we're going to get to talk about there, where we just kind of share, maybe a more personal side of our businesses and our family and talking about some of those topics. I think we found a really good format that's going to be a lot of fun for us to do, but also a lot of fun and helpful for a lot of people.
So let's talk a little bit about our backgrounds here. So let me first start off with you. You can kind of talk a little bit about your background and then we'll dive into mine.
Okay. I went to college to be a teacher. I was an education major. I actually met Dan my last year, senior in college. I would not describe myself as a natural entrepreneur at all. In fact, I guess most entrepreneurs are probably known for, their high levels of risk-taking and being willing to take risks. I'm probably on the very opposite end of that scale. My risk aversion is extremely high. So I would not have, 15 years ago, I would not have seen myself in this position at all. But, God has a sense of humor. And we met my senior year in college, and I moved away to teach school in Tennessee, taught there for a couple of years, taught for 4 more years after that, and we were married and you were in school. And of course, I'll let you talk a little bit about that. But the bottom line is I was not an entrepreneur, not naturally anyway. And we've been able to, start several businesses now. I think the total is probably around 7 or 8. And we started off with the one and before we were married, and that grew, and then we added a couple more, and then a couple more here and a couple more there, and here we are. So I've learned a lot of lessons about leadership, about business, about taking risk, about making hard decisions, and a lot of that just been because you have to do what you have to do. And when you get in that position, you got to make a decision and move forward. So not a natural entrepreneur, but I love what we're doing now, and it's a lot of fun, and I've learned a lot.
I'll kind of start with my story here and kind of talk about, Dennae's uncle is a chiropractor in Greenville, South Carolina, and that is where we first met. When I first met him, I was designing websites and doing hosting and networking and those types of things, and we built a relationship. And at around the same time that he moved to Greenville, South Carolina from Jacksonville, Florida, to start a practice in Greenville, I was actually making the decision to go back to school. So I actually was going to go to the University of South Carolina and pursue a degree in biology. And I was seeking someone to be able to employ me at the time. And so while I was in school, I was employed by him and learned quite a bit about the ins and outs of a chiropractic office and those types of things. And while I was finishing up my undergrad, all along, of course, staying in contact with Dennae throughout the years while she was away. And, when she moved back into the area, I say into the area because she actually moved to Columbia, South Carolina, and I continued to court her. And so I actually finished up my first year of chiropractic college before we actually got married. And the first kind of business outside of my prior businesses, because ever since I can remember, I've been an entrepreneur. And I remember selling, Cutco knives. I remember selling, candy bars door to door. I remember doing, lawn work and pressure washing and siding, pressure washing for siding and sidewalks and, anything you can think of. I was just always interested in things of the entrepreneurial bend, if you will. And always those types of things always excited me. And so I just continued down that pursuit. And I never really liked working for somebody else because I like to be able to call the shots and make my own decisions and be able to be the person that allows for the growth and to be able to see that kind of growth. And so I actually started after I finished my biology degree at the University of South Carolina. I went to chiropractic college at Life University in Atlanta. And the very first kind of business that I started after that was an online business, and it all sparked from this chiropractic college. So, and the reason why is because the first quarter or the second quarter into the classes, we all needed a spine model. And the spine models in the bookstore are $180. That's what they were at that time. And so I decided to go and source these spine models, and I found the distributor, which is actually now one of my competitors, oddly enough. And I called them up and I said, hey, what can you give me these spine models for? I think I could probably sell at least 15 or 20 of them. And they said, oh, well, if you can sell that many of them, then we can give it to you for $65. So I was like, that's awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and mark it up $5. And I wanted to make it, seem less than 70. So I made it $69.95 and went around to each one of the classes and sold these spine models. And the first week I sold 80 spine models, and it wasn't like an IOU. I wanted to make sure I had the money up front. So I had them either prepay with PayPal or a check or cash or whatever it was. And I sold 80 of them in the first week, just going from class to class and selling those. And I was just so excited about it, because I'm counting the dollars, I'm thinking, 80 times 5, because all of the $65 even included the shipping. So what I decided to do was I was like, I wonder if I could circumvent this distributor and go straight to the manufacturer. So that's what I did. I called the manufacturer up of the spine model and told them what kind of an order I wanted to place. And they said, well, how many times a year could you do this? And I'm like, well, we got 4 quarters. So there's a class that starts every couple of months. So, we can do this at least 4 times a year, or something close to it. And they're like, oh, well, we'll go ahead and set you up as a distributor, and you can sell all of these models and all of these, and not just spine models, but we had skeletons and skulls and brains and hearts, all these, plastic models for, anatomy labs. We'll let you sell all of those things. And I was like, sweet. And we'll give you the highest discount level. And I'll never forget this number, but I used to sell those spine models, and I got them for $42.48. And I'll never forget that number because it was just so shocking to me that I was able to sell these for $42.48.
Right. And I love that story because I actually still remember where I was standing in my parents' house when you called to tell me that you were going to get the spines for the $42. I didn't remember the number like you did, but I remember where I was. That's just a neat thing because that's kind of where I guess we started as far as the businesses go. And of course, I wasn't as excited about it as you were because that's just my personality. I'm the kind of person that tends to think about all of the bad things that could happen. But I remember that you were super excited, and I was excited that it was at least we were going to get this first big order in and then, see where it was going to go.
Yeah, to be able to sell 80 spine models in 1 week and make over $2,000, I was pretty stoked, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was pretty neat because we weren't even married yet. I know that. And, we were looking at how we were going to, do things for a couple of years until you finish school. So that was pretty cool. And the prospect of being able to do that a couple of times a year at least, that was exciting.
Yeah, and that manufacturer that allowed us to start selling their models opened us up to their whole entire catalog, and we were able to continue the selling of that. I started actually on selling on eBay, of all places, just to kind of throw a couple things out there to see if I was able to sell them, and I was selling them. And I was like, well, I know how to do a website, so let me start a website. So I started a website and started putting some advertising towards it on Google, and all of a sudden the orders started coming in at $20,000 a month, $30,000 a month, and got up to over 100 and something thousand. I think we were at one point we did a little over $200,000 a month, but we can have consistently done over 100,000 a month for many years. And we just kind of always sit back and wonder, is it going to stop?
Right. When are people going to stop needing these bone models? Right. I mean, surely we've sold enough, or the demand is going to run out, but it hasn't. That was September or October, I guess, of that year. And by June of the next year, we had gotten married, and then probably by the next fall is when we started to get some bone models in the closets and the hallways in our apartment.
Get some skeletons in the closet.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, they have extra ones, or this one was broken, a customer returned it and it sat in the closet.
Well, one of the main manufacturers, if you remember, was there in Tucker, Georgia. And so it was basically about a 30-minute drive from our house in Kennesaw. And when you drop ship, many times they'll charge you a drop ship fee, or they'll give you a lesser percentage. And so we were going to be charged, I think, 6% of the total overall item to have them ship it out and drop ship it for us. And so what I had worked out with that manufacturer is I would just have them get the orders ready for me once a week and just put them off to the side. And then I would drive down my SUV with the labels already pre-done up and printed, and I would drive down to that warehouse and pick up the items, slap labels on them, and just walk them over to a FedEx place that was like across the street. And I remember we started off doing that once a week, and then it quickly got to the point where we were going twice a week.
Twice a week with the SUV completely full from the front seat all the way to the back. There were a few times I think I probably got in the passenger side with a box in my lap a time or two as well. But I think that's cool because that just shows what, people that run small businesses are willing to do. And that's really cool. We were getting started, and that 6%, that was a big deal. And who knows what we did with that 6%, I mean, at some point that was a lot of money. And eventually the manufacturer, the guy that was the head of their location there, he was like, look, if you'll just stop coming down here to get these, we'll just give you the extra 6% and drop ship it for you anyway. Of course, that was a neat thing because then we didn't have to make that little trip. But
yeah, it actually worked out really well because, even when we moved from Georgia to South Carolina, they continued to keep us at that same discount level. And so it was definitely worth it.
Right.
And so that entire business, I continued, and I still have it. And I started that in 2007. And we have continued that business, and it's now 10, 11 years now down the road, and
right.
continues to produce for us. And now we have a warehouse here in South Carolina. It's not a large one; it's about 2,500 square feet, and we only have one person working in that business right now because it's pretty much on autopilot and pretty passive for the most part. We have one person that handles like customer service, and we also get a lot of large purchase orders from colleges and universities that have anatomy labs. And as I'm talking about this, I'm thinking about that story from the Nigerian government. You remember that one? This was a really crazy story. So we had an order request come in from our website that the Nigerian government wanted to order 1,000 skeleton models. And they ended up actually ordering like 1,012, I think, or something like some odd, weird number. And so I had got on the phone with this person and I was like, listen, there's a lot of fraud that comes out of Nigeria. I'm not just going to ship 1,000 models over there and just have you pay with a credit card where you can charge back or whatever. So, I worked it out with them where I was like, listen, if you want to place this order, I'm more than happy to fulfill it because I'd love to have the order. But I need to have a check in hand from one of the top 5 major banks in the United States with a cashier's check so I can make sure my funds were there and they weren't going to be taken back once I shipped them. And of course, I remember talking to you about it. I'm like, I don't think we're ever going to get this, but that's the way I wanted to play the game because I didn't want to get burned. And so sure enough, the next day, overnight, comes in the mail from FedEx, an envelope, and sure enough, there's a check in there for the full amount for the 1,000 skeleton models.
Yeah,
it was pretty exciting, and it's thankfully we drop shipped those, so we never had to touch those. But they told us that they were using it in their education. I think it was the primary education or whatever.
Right. So I think that was probably our first big overseas order, but we were able to do several like that, sell to a couple of different movie companies as well.
Yep, even in a few movies.
Appear in some movies, and I think we got a copy of one of the movies at one point.
Yeah, we've been in some of the movies. We've been in some of the TV shows. A lot of the
donated a model one time.
Yep.
I can't remember what show that was, but one of the home makeover shows. So that was pretty neat.
As I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about that trip that we took to Dallas.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that?
Yes.
If you go to our website, it's actually shopanatomical.com. And on that website, when you first go to the front page, you'll see that there is a man standing next to an enlarged heart. Like it's like a massive heart. It's like 10 times or 20 times life size.
Exactly.
I mean, it's massive. It's huge. Like it basically stands probably about mid chest to him. And it's, I don't know, what do those things run? Like $5,000 or $6,000 or something like that?
Yeah, I think the retail or what we sold it was more like 7 or 8. But
okay.
Yeah.
Well, of course, when I'm starting to build out this website and we're looking at these products, I remember my wife, Dennae over there, she probably remembers it too, where she's like, why are you putting that on the site? We're never going to sell that. And I'm like, you never know. We might as well put it out there. It doesn't hurt to put it out there. And sure enough, there was a hospital, and it's still there at that hospital in Dallas. There's a hospital in Dallas that were building out a new cardiology, wing to their hospital, and they needed one of these heart models. Well, the problem is that these heart models take about 8 to 12 weeks to make and ship over from Germany.
Right, because they don't just produce those and ship
they don't keep
out.
Those in stock.
Yeah.
And the other bad thing is that they had ordered it a little bit too late. And so it was going to be coming in about like a week or two before that cardiology war was supposed to be like launching. And they're going to have this huge celebration. And they wanted to have everything done. And this was kind of like the centerpiece for that entire, waiting room area. And so they said, well, when are you going to get it in? And we gave them all the information. It was going to be a week before. I was told by the manufacturer, well, if you get it and you have your typical freight forwarding company pick it up and they ship it and something breaks, we can't get it right away. So, and if they damage it, you're going to have to front the cost for it because we're not going to be able to do it. And so I basically called up the cardiology, hospital there, and I just told them the situation. And I said, I tell you what, I'm going to drive it down there myself. So I drove down to, you and I both did this.
Yeah, I think we got in the SUV at about like 1 or 2 o'clock on a Saturday morning and drove straight through like all day Saturday and got there like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we got a little visit it was Dallas, right?
Yep.
We got a little visit to Dallas and dinner. And then and I was teaching school. So we had to be back by Sunday afternoon so that I could teach school on Monday. So we spent Saturday night and got up Sunday and drove all the way back.
Yep. It was a lot of fun. And that's one of those trips I'll never forget either because it was just one of those things that was the first time we really did anything extended for the business, that length and, that excursion, like, if you will. And, it was really, I guess for me, it was about customer service.
Well, I was just going to say, I could be wrong, but I don't think they would have gotten that kind of customer service from a larger company at that point. It was something that we were able to do because of where we were. And it was a neat thing to see them so excited to get that heart model. I remember that lady when she met us at the vehicle, she was super excited to see her heart model. And And I think we got a quick tour of the new cardiology wing and everything too.
And they gave us dinner.
Yes,
I remember they giving us some money for dinner there.
Yeah.
So, because we didn't spend the night, we just went all the way through and then came back, didn't we?
Well, I think we did stay the night somewhere. We might have started back that night, but we spent the night somewhere.
Yeah. I know it's a long drive. It was like 15 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
So kind of fast forwarding here, just kind of giving you a little bit about, our background and our relationship and kind of some of the things that we've done. That's one of the businesses that we have. That's an online business and is pretty passive. We have a few other online businesses that are similar. Not really similar in the story, but they're similar in the fact that they're passive, they're drop ship, and they don't take a lot of our time. Somebody asked me this past week, how much time do those businesses take you? And I'm like, 0. Like I don't really. I mean, maybe 1 hour a month, if that. If I aggregate all the phone calls that I might have with that one person in house, but for the most part, I mean, I don't do much. And you do books and stuff for it, and we have an accountant now that does that stuff. So pretty much it's pretty much passive.
Right. I think we both still feel a little bit of an attachment to it just because it was our first one.
Agree.
And that we've done together, but it really doesn't take us much energy or time investment now, but it's neat to still have it.
Mm-hmm. So, fast forwarding a little bit, going through chiropractic school, I finished up, got my degree, got licensed. And of course, when I got out of school back in 2010, December 2010 is when I graduated. In 2011, I started my first practice, and it was a chiropractic only practice. And that was the first office we had. And I quickly decided that I wanted to, integrate medical doctors and physician assistants and nurse practitioners and DOs into our practice to be able to, help more patients. And so we started to go down that path and add more medical services to the practice. And most of it was specifically regarding non-surgical orthopedics. So prolotherapy, platelet-rich plasma therapy, those kind of things that are alternative and you can't really get very many places. And so we started launching into the second clinic in 2016. And then last year we opened up 3 more clinics. So we have a total of 5 medical clinics now. We actually decided to take out the chiropractic, not because I don't believe in chiropractic and I don't think it works. I adjusted, Dennae today. She was complaining of some issues in her hip, and we went over to the office and I adjusted her. But those clinics are now all medical. And the reason why we took out the chiropractic from those offices is because in chiropractors don't refer to their own. And so it's very hard to get referrals for the medical services that are more alternative when you have chiropractic going on in your office. And so we wanted to be able to reach out to local chiropractors and physical therapy offices and get referrals into our clinics for some of those patients that need us and that wouldn't refer otherwise. And so we took out the chiropractic and have started getting some referrals from those outside chiropractors. But we have 1 full-time medical doctor that works for us who travels to the various clinics. We have 5 nurse practitioners, and then we also have 3 supervising physicians that are on our team as well. But we have just shy of 50 employees in those 5 clinics that are other non-surgical orthopedics.
Right. And we have just shy of 50 employees now. But if you think about it, the last year was a big year of growth for us. So because we started those 3 clinics. And so I want to say before last year, about this time, we probably had 20 employees. And so a lot of changes have happened, but
a lot of tough decisions,
which one of them we're going to talk about here in just a minute, but we really, I think, put ourselves in a good position for then that explosion of growth in 2017.
So prior to opening up the second clinic and also prior to integrating the medical services, I had a tough decision that I was facing in the fact that we had an office manager that was in place in the primary office, and there was nothing wrong with her. Like, she wasn't doing anything wrong. Her performance wasn't lacking. She was a good office manager. She worked well with the staff, but I needed somebody that I thought that could handle the growth and that could handle the expansion of adding the medical services and the complexities that come along with that. There's a lot of compliance issues that you have to deal with there, and there's just a lot of different nuances for it. And I just didn't feel like she was the right person, and I approached Dennae. I said, I need you in the practice to be able to get this to the next level, and could you please come help us? And so she'll talk to you a little bit about her tough decision, because that was a tough decision for her to make that decision to come on board. But for me, it was the tough decision I had was firing that office manager it was just hard for me because I think it was like probably my second firing ever that I'd ever done. And so the first one was, not fun, but the second one with this one was one of those situations where the person wasn't doing anything wrong. I just needed to put somebody else in that position. And sometimes when you're in leadership and you're an entrepreneur, you have to make those tough decisions of, hey, I need to let this person go because they're going to hold us back from being able to grow and get to the point where we need to get. And so it was very emotional for me because it was right around Christmas time. And I didn't want to let this person go during Christmas or even shortly after Christmas. But I think it was like maybe a week or two after Christmas that we ended up letting her go. And we did decide to give her a severance, for her time and things like that, to give her some extra time to be able to find another job. But I worked myself up with it. And if you are listening and you've ever had to fire somebody, we typically will work ourselves up and think of the worst possible case scenario that could happen, like, you're going to sit down and talk to this person. They're going to blow up and get out their guns and start shooting or something.
I'm pretty sure it's never been as bad as I thought it would be in my head.
I've never had it really bad. I mean, I know some people that have worked for me that have had it pretty bad, but I've always worked it up more than it really is. And this was the same situation. When I told her what we were doing and what I wanted to do as far as bringing you on, she was very understanding. And she's like, she goes, I'm sure that there's something else out there. And this is just a stepping stone for me. I appreciate the opportunity and I wish you the best. And the next thing is going to be out there for me. And God already knows what that is. So she was actually encouraging me and then kind of teaching me things that during that, tough decision. But, all in all, I believe it was the right decision. It was a good decision that we made, albeit tough.
Right. As far as my side of that tough decision, we had been working together for quite a while, I guess since 2010 when I stopped teaching. I had been doing some different things for our businesses, mainly bookkeeping and accounting work, but also some customer service. And I had been in the office some, but never on a day-to-day, every day, 5 days a week basis. And so in December of 2014, when Dan asked me and said, I really think that you're the right person to come in and be the office manager and let's work together and let's get to the next level, I wasn't so sure that I was the right person. I think that was a lot of my hesitancy. I didn't really know if I could do that. I wasn't trained to do that. I was a teacher, not an office manager. I wasn't any kind of...
But you were trained to manage, whether it was students or people.
That is true. I'd always wanted to be in administration as a teacher in education. And that was kind of my eventual goal there. So that is true. But I had very little experience as far as an office and that kind of thing goes. So I wasn't sure I was the right person. And then we also had 2 small children at home, not babies, but toddlers in preschool. And I had been home with them on a regular basis for about 3 years. So I just wasn't sure that, how that would go for them and how our family would be able to make that transition and if I'd be able to do a good job. And there were days when I didn't feel like I was doing a good job at any of it, but there were a lot of successes that we saw pretty quickly. I think we knew that we had made the right decision, even though, and that doesn't mean that it was easy for that next year, that 2015. The whole year was not easy. In fact, I think we had a lot of growing pains that year, but it was neat because we were in it together. And I think for both of us, I know that I really, really enjoyed the synergy that we had because we were both on the same page and we both bring a lot of energy in different ways to what we do there in the office. And I guess I went back full time in January of 2015.
Yeah.
At the beginning of March in 2015 is when we found our new location because we were bursting at the seams. What was it, 2,500 square feet, I think, of office that we had. And then at the beginning of March, we found a new location, 5,000 square feet, moved into that by the end of March. And we were off and running with that medical integration. It was really, really neat. We did, a lot of different things. Maybe we can talk about it at some point, some of the things that we did with our family, just to kind of include everybody and make that a little bit easier for the kids. And it was definitely a transition, but it was really neat. The thing that brought me to that decision was we had visited another medically integrated office that we were just looking at and kind of trying to take pointers from and see exactly where we wanted to go. And they were a husband and wife, and they actually asked Dan, well, who's your office manager? And he said, well, we have this other individual that she's in there. And again, like he said, there was nothing wrong with what she was doing. And he looked at me, the other doctor looked at me and said, you need to be the office manager. And I'm thinking, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know our situation. But he was right, because the energy, like I said, the energy that we were able to bring together and being on the same page and knowing exactly what we wanted to do and accomplish was, I think, the catalyst to getting us where we wanted to go that fast.
What would you say is the main lesson or takeaway from that tough decision that the listeners can take away to really learn from that?
I think for us that we had to get uncomfortable to get to where we wanted to be. And that was a hard thing. I think for the two of us, being on the same page and having somebody that that's with you and's got your back, so to speak, and knows what your goals are and is there on a daily basis, that was, I think, important for us. And so I think the lesson there is, if you have that person, then you need to keep that person and value that person. If you don't, then you got to find that person. And for you, it happened to be me, which was a neat coincidence, I guess. But we also have a couple of other employees now that I think we could both say, we could trust that employee. We know that they're on the same page with us, and those kinds of people are, I don't want to say irreplaceable, but close. And you want to maintain those people and keep them close and value those people and let them know that they're there. Because this office manager, she wasn't doing anything wrong or bad, but I would say that she wasn't the right person to get us to the next level. And we both know that. So when you find that person, you got to put them in a place where they can do that.
Well, and the lesson that I would try to share with you is this kind of a very similar thing, where you have to be uncomfortable to kind of make certain tough decisions, but not just only that, but when it comes to staff and as a leader in your organization, as an entrepreneur, you have to be able to see and understand your team to the point where you know what they are good at and what they're not good at, and where you can help them grow, but also to know where their limitations are. And I think the thing that's really good about you and I and our relationship and how we work together is how we counterbalance each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's a lot of strengths that I have that, I also have weaknesses that you have strengths in, and we kind of balance each other out in those areas. And so I think that, the biggest thing is finding staff that can fill your voids and help lift you up. And don't always try to hire staff that are not as smart as you. I always try to say, let's hire some people that are smarter than me that can help us grow and help us get to that next level.
Mm-hmm. And I think for me, especially, I guess, someone with my personality, I tend to be a planner and someone that likes things well within my control, if you will. And Dan is constantly stretching me in that area. My point being, you have to learn to embrace the uncomfortable, because that's where growth happens. And if you're always dreading being uncomfortable and you're always pushing against that, you're resisting the change and the growth that needs to happen, whether it's professionally or personally or socially or wherever you are. And I know that I've learned in the last 3 years, you're going to be miserable, right? If Dan's pulling me along and I'm resisting, you're going to be miserable. Whereas if you can learn to just embrace the uncomfortable as, hey, I'm not going to be perfect at this. And I know I made a lot of mistakes. I probably frustrated him more than once on those days when, things weren't going exactly right. And I was learning a lot, but we embraced the uncomfortable because we're going to grow from it. And that's been really neat to see. And one of the things that's very satisfying for me, I don't know if he remembers this, but not too long ago, we had in one of our new offices, one of our employees there, we were up there together for the first time. And she came in and she goes, "It is so cool to have you guys here." She's like, "This is like having the dynamic duo here." And I guess, she didn't know us that well, but when we came in there and we were working together and we had things hopping along, it was really neat. And the staff picked up on that and they felt that. So again, when you have those people, you really want to value them. And if you don't, you want to find those people, find the people that are smarter than you in the areas of your weakness and can, really provide value for the company.
So thank you guys so much for listening to this very first or zero episode. We're calling episode 0. We wanted to give you guys a little bit of a background on who we are and why we're doing this podcast. And I guess you could say we're a little bit selfish in the fact that we wanted to start this podcast to also learn from other successful entrepreneurs and real estate investors, but we also wanted to be able to share that information with the world. And so I guess my first request to the listeners is, if you're listening, please do us a favor, and once the podcast launches and it starts, post a review on iTunes as well as on Facebook and YouTube, and just allow us to be able to get the word out, to be able to help as many people as we can. Our goal is to try to reach as many people as we can with this podcast. And, technology nowadays is amazing. You could never have done a radio show like this 20 or 30 years ago, but, technology now is just, expanding at a rapid pace, and to be able to sit in our offices at the house and, go back and forth on the radio here or the podcast, and then be able to broadcast this out to the world is amazing. And we just hope that we'll be able to help, hundreds and thousands, if not millions and billions of, entrepreneurs and real estate investors that are out there. So, stay tuned. There's a lot of things coming, and, we're looking forward to sharing even more stories. I'll share some stories of some of the tough decisions that we've made within the practices, but also as we're moving forward into some other, ventures and various things like that. So thank you so much for listening, and we look forward to our launch on June 1st. Please like and share us everywhere and anywhere.
Do you want to nominate a highly successful entrepreneur or real estate investor to be a guest on this show? Email us at dan@toughdecisions.net. Help us by spreading the word about our show with your friends. And also take time right now to subscribe and leave a review on iTunes, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or your favorite platform. You've been listening to The Tough Decisions Show.